February meeting of Finance, Personnel, and Higher Education. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the previous minutes. Mr. Sokol, Mr. Simpson on the second. Any comments, corrections? If not, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the prior meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And now I'll open up for privilege of the floor to anyone in the audience wishing to address the committee at this time. Alrighty, then we'll move right into the
Good job.
right into the action agenda. Request for transfer of funds as attached for committee approval. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 4.1. Bring it to the floor for discussion. Mr. Simpson, Ms. Frazier on the second. Discussion. There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of action item 4.1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action item 4.1 is carried. 4.2, Human Resource Director to review report on tracking of salary implications for positions filled. Jackie? Jackie, anything?
Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. I also wanted to see if this was serving the purpose it was intended to serve. We've been doing it a little over a year. We are not including newly created positions on here. I didn't know if that would be helpful to have a separate section for maybe a newly created position, and then if it was offset by a deleted position, kind of track that as well.
Where are we on this agenda?
We're on item 2. Item 2.
Number 2, not Roman.
It's on item 2.
Okay.
Page 4.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Eve.
I would completely agree. I think that is a missing piece on that, and if that's something that the committee would agree that that's an important piece, but to be able to see the newly created and then the ones that were deleted as a result of that, I think that's a great catch.
And without objection? That the report will be modified as such. All right. All righty, let's move right into item 3, request from the county treasurer. 3A, request to close capital project H235, Finance and Human Resource Management, and return the estimated cash balance of $1,921.91 to the general fund. Chair will entertain a motion. Bring this to the floor for action. See Mr. Gerard's hand. Thank you. Second. Second, Ms. Bramer. How are you? Thank you. Any discussion? There being none, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of approving item 3A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3A is carried. I believe Larry's, Mr. Peltritz is anticipated at any time, so I would ask that item 3B be...
Can I just make a statement on that before you do that, sir?
Well, of course, Mr. Swan, of course. Have at it.
What item B is, it has nothing to do with the legalities of what's going on with Siemens and Larry Peltowitz or any of that stuff. This is strictly a budget thing that I need to have done in order to continue to make the payments for the lease, okay? I have to create a budget account and a revenue stream, okay? So I'm not trying to do anything or say anything about the legalities or what should be done, shouldn't be done, how it should be handled, or anything else. I want to make that very clear. This is strictly just a budget thing that I need to do in order to make sure that we continue to make the payments so that I have an account to pull it out of and I have a revenue source to offset that. That's it. Okay, I want to make that very clear.
Well, maybe it would be helpful for the committee, maybe since you've engaged the subject, maybe if you could, we see the creation of the expenditure line of 458,407.88, and maybe you could talk about, just briefly, about what the anticipated revenue would be in whole or in part against that.
As of right now, the only anticipated revenue that I know of that's coming in will be a payment on the lease from, well, it's not Centers, it's Warren Operations Associates. The other two factors are not. I don't know what's going to happen with those. I haven't been told. I've asked the question a couple of times, and I don't think that's been resolved yet, is my understanding.
Mm-hmm. And that differential would be what amount? If there is a differential, what
Well,
would,
we've already spent $1,500, so we're talking probably about $800 a month on the performance.
Mhm.
The vast majority of the payment is the lease, and we should be getting, according to the agreements that I've seen and been
Mhm.
told, we should be getting money back from centers to offset, and they have been billed for the lease payments.
all right. And, so if, I mean, it's one thing or the other, assuming for the moment that, is not a part of, anticipated revenue stream, then those dollars would have to be appropriated.
Yes, we've got it, yeah, I have to identify, and, it's either gonna be contingency or the unreserved fund balance.
Sure. Mhm.
So that's basically what I'm looking for here is the authority to create that account and to use, either I've lost my train of thought. Use either the fund balance or the contingency to supplement what isn't paid to us by, centers.
All righty, thank you, Mike. I think we'll, for this juncture, I think we should, if Larry's on his way, we might as well wait for Larry, if that's all right with the committee? All right?
That's right, I'll wait for that.
Okay, let's wait for Larry. All right. Let's move on to, item, 4A, referral from the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. 4A, request, to amend the table of organization salary schedule to delete the existing position of assistant to the assigned council administrator, less than part-time annual salary of $15,218, and create the position of clerk, less than part-time, annual salary of $15,218, effective March 21/16. This change will allow the fully funded part-time position to be filled at no cost to Warren County and will provide access to a much wider pool of candidates to fill same. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 4A. Ms. Seaver, Ms. Frazier on the second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of item 4A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4A is carried. Item 4B, probation, request to amend the table of organization and salary schedule to decrease the salary of the probation supervisor, number one, salary from $65,155 to $60,000, retroactive to January 19, 2016. Although the employee filling the position is being paid $60,000, a resolution is necessary to formally amend the salary schedule, retroactive to that date. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 4B. Mr. Simpson, Mr. Dickinson on the second. Any discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of item 4B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4B is carried. 4C, Public Defender, a request for a new policy to authorize an alternate day off in lieu of a scheduled holiday in the event that an employee is called into work on an official holiday, or if an employee normal day off falls on an official holiday. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item C. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Gerard on the second. Any discussion? Ms. Seaver?
I'm just wondering, since we did hear from Ms. Flores this morning, that this is applicable as well to county attorney and the district attorney's office, should the department name be expanded to include those two, departments as well, since they're the only other ones that would utilize this?
Paul, would you like to comment on that?
I don't have, oh yeah, I do have. The language that is being proposed is in your packet, as 4C on the back side. And it says, when a non-union and Fair Labor Standards exempt employee, so it doesn't specifically refer to the Public Defender's Office. So it would be anybody who would be in that status. So I think that would cover anybody. Jackie, would you agree with that?
Okay, thank you.
Ready? So I think it's expansive to include those, at least those departments. All righty. Are we, any further discussion then? Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of item 4C signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4C is carried. Item 5, referral from the Health and Human and Social Services Committee, Countryside Adult Home, request to reclassify the position of laborer, grade 2, annual base salary $25,281, to food service helper, grade 2, annual base salary $25,281. effective February 22nd, 16, and to amend the table of organization and salary schedule accordingly. This request was made as per the direction of the personnel officer in order to make the position title better fit the duties assumed by the position. Chair will entertain a motion to bring 5A to the floor for discussion. Mr. Dickinson and Mr. Sokol on the second. Any discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of item 5A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5A is carried. Department of Social Services, request to increase the salary of the First Assistant Social Service Attorney, 67,052, to $70,000 effective March 21st, 16, and to amend the table of organization and salary schedule accordingly in order to align the salary of the First Assistant Social Services Attorney with that of the First Assistant County Attorney. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 5B. Mr. Dickinson, Ms. Frazier on the second. Discussion. Ms. Eber.
I thought when you were just, talking about the date, you said effective March 21st, 2016, but the effective date change on here is February 22nd?
The narration says March 21st. Let me turn to the request. It does. All right. Amanda, do you want to say that a little louder?
Normally, we would make these effective the Monday following the board meeting, and that's why on the agenda it says the March date.
Right.
But Sarah's telling me that Joanne McKinstry indicated that it does need to be effective February. March, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. It needs to be effective in March, not February.
All right. So the resolution is correctly stated.
The
March
form itself
21st.
is wrong.
The form is wrong.
So where, on section D, it would read March 21.
Yes. Any further discussion?
I know this already came through committee, but I am opposed to it because this person, we have no idea if she's going to the county attorney's office or what the situation is. And I appreciate, Cynthia's advocacy for her, but this person has already received a raise this last year. Thanks.
Any other comments,
Yeah,
Mr. Beatty?
I'm just a little uncomfortable too. In other words, if you're at one position, you apply to another, in the county, we automatically bump your current salary up to the position you're applying for. And I'm sure she's valuable in the position she's at, but I'm just uncomfortable with this whole process of bumping her up just because she's applied to another position. Whether it stands on its own merits, if she gets the other position or not, or whatever, that's an entirely separate thing in salary, and so I'm gonna vote no on this.
Mr. Chairman, this is an unusual situation, but there's two things I think that are very important. One is that I believe that the two positions are essentially the same, and so they should be paid at the same salary. So it's either a matter of bringing this salary up or lowering the other salary, because I think that you have essentially similar positions. The second thing is that the position in the social services, because they're dealing with very, very sensitive social services issues, child protective services, things of that nature, you want a well-experienced attorney, somebody that can handle that job and who you believe and know will do a good job. I think Sarah has proven herself in that role. So I would be very concerned about losing her to the county attorney's office just because of $3,000. The last point would be that when you set these salaries, you know, there is always a range in salaries and what's appropriate. And to me, it seems like the $3,000 difference certainly would be within some sort of range that's reasonable. So I would just encourage the committee to think very carefully about this, because I just think that for $3,000, and actually it's not even $3,000 to the county because you social services, you get your reimbursement. I think the disruption in this would be far worse than the payment of the money.
We vetted this in committee and moved this forward in this fashion. She made a perfectly legitimate argument, and I'm not about to micromanage somebody at this point in the game.
All right, anyone else? Trish?
Just wanted to clarify that the title is Assistant County Attorney, although she may perform the levels more formally in the resolution, it should say Assistant County Attorney. And if, Cynthia wants to request it, we can certainly work on that to, the other title.
Mr. Chairman?
So you're saying the title just,
I'm sorry, Assistant Social Services Attorney.
you're saying the word first should be struck?
Right, her formal title does not include the word first.
All right. Does everyone understand that? The correct title is Assistant Social Services Attorney, not first. Rachel?
Am I correct in understanding, and maybe Cynthia could just kind of clarify this for me, that, if she ends up going over to the county attorney's office for the position that she applied at that set salary, you're gonna come back to us and ask to fill that position, and I assume at that point in time, you're gonna ask us to set the salary the same as to what it is at the county attorney's office, because as Paul just mentioned, they're doing equal jobs. Okay. So, I mean, I think that's normally not a big, give everybody a raise thing, but I think in this circumstance, we're just gonna be back at this table to increase that salary to fill the position, so I'm gonna support it.
All right. Any further discussion? There being none, I'll ask for a show of hands, regarding this resolution. All those in favor of the resolution signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Resolution is carried. I see, Mr. Peltritz just arrived. If you could take the podium, Larry, could we give Larry a copy of the agenda if he doesn't have one? Just so he can see the item, that's under discussion. Larry, we're looking at item 3B. And this came from the county treasurer. And, effectively what, the treasurer is asking for is for this committee to recommend to the board to create an expenditure line of 458, 407, 88. To be able to pay, bills, that, exist relating to, Siemens. In addition, there is, already an obligation of $1,578.16 that I assume is accrued over what, Mike, the last couple of months?
January and February.
For January and February. So, Ms. Peltritz is here. Does anyone have any questions for Larry? Peter?
Yeah, I just probably need a little more mini education on the performance assurance reports, and do we lose anything in terms of our legal viability and credibility, assuming, we get involved in serious litigation with Siemens by going ahead with these reports or not going ahead with these reports? Are we losing any legal strength, by not going ahead with these reports? It seems like Michael is looking for an accounting, scenario.
I just need a way to pay the bills.
I think really there's two things that are involved here. Anything dealing with the budget certainly is an open session item to talk about. Anything related to the legal aspect of dealings with Siemens would be an executive session. As you know, we've had lengthy discussions about where things stand with regard to the Siemens litigation and what the county's position is. And this is intertwined a little bit with that, but anything related to, in direct response to your question, I would recommend that we discuss that in executive session. If there's a discussion about the budget in general, then obviously that's a, discussion for open session.
I think we'll conduct ourselves, we'll just conduct the open session, and we'll ask our attorneys, should there be a question that you think has to be held for executive session, we'll hold it and we'll go into it. If such a question arises, we'll go into executive session at that time. But my sense is to allow the discussion to take place relative to the treasurer's request. Now, perhaps the committee might be interested in hearing, Larry, that how much of the 458, 407, 88, we would expect under the arrangement, the sale arrangement, that we would expect from Centers?
Okay, well, under the arrangement with Centers, that, as you know, the lease for the cogen facility was not assigned. Centers or Westmont Operations will be reimbursing the county for the monthly lease payment, which is $32,000 and change. There are also two other components to the agreement with Siemens, one dealing with the technical support and one dealing with the performance guarantee. I'm assuming those numbers are included, or I'm not sure if they're included or not included in the 458. At this point in time, we're in discussions with Centers confirming what they, if they want either of those two components to continue or not, and that will be dependent upon what ultimately the county will pay and what Centers, Warren Operations will reimburse the county.
Claudia?
Larry, I thought that that piece had been negotiated as part of the sale. What they were promising they would continue to do.
Right, they have a
Or
right.
that they would continue.
I'm sorry. Sure, and that's true. They have the right, though, to say they don't want the technical support any longer. They have a right to say they don't want the performance guarantee any longer. And if so, the county, if in fact if the county wants to end those components, the county would end those components prospectively, and Centers would not then be reimbursing the county for anything that the county didn't spend dollars on. So the arrangement was in the agreement. It's just a matter of what the buyer wants to continue or doesn't want to continue. And again, the county would then address that situation when the point in time comes that Centers would say that they don't want to go forward with it any longer.
What am I remembering about they have to continue operating the cogen? Is that all it is? They must continue
Correct.
operating the cogen for I forget.
Correct.
Till 2021 or whatever the year is.
Correct. So in theory, what happens is if they say we have our own people that we're going to be doing the technical support work, which means maintenance of the cogen facility and repair of the cogen facility. If they have their own people that they feel confident can do that, they certainly can. That's their obligation and responsibility to do. What they committed to do was to continue operating the cogen, which they are doing, and there's no question about that.
Rachel?
Thanks, Larry. Bear with me here, because I have a couple questions. I think they all fall within open session, although I do have one that I think would fall under executive. But, so to be clear, they buy the nursing home, but they did not make any determination of whether they wanted to keep the maintenance or the performance contracts before the time of the sale being finalized. That was left
Correct.
open-ended,
Correct.
and we gave them that option.
Correct.
And so now it becomes, sorry, Doug, if they, so we're not getting reimbursed on any of that through, as it stands right now, for maintenance and performance.
No, that's not true.
For maintenance and performance?
Again, there's three components. There's a component for the lease itself, there's a component for the technical support, and there's a component for the performance guarantee.
Okay.
And so, at this point, we're getting determination from Centers as to whether or not they want to continue the technical support or whether they want to continue the performance guarantee.
Okay, so let me be more specific then. In
They're
January and
okay.
February, we were not reimbursed for the technical support or the performance contract.
Yes. Let's back up. The performance guarantee was billed quarterly and was paid in December of 2015. The technical support's billed monthly. So at this point, it's my understanding that Centers received the technical support provision benefit in January and February, and I would expect that they will be reimbursing the county for those 2 months. Whether or not prospectively they decide to end it is up to them. The performance guarantee is something different, because that was something that was paid in December, and so there's discussions ongoing about what happens to January and February.
Okay, so.
So and I think that's what's referenced here. This 157816 references 2/3 of the quarterly bill that was paid in December, is what I was told. I haven't seen any documentation. This is what I was told by representatives of the county.
All right, so what is the time frame by which that this brings me to my other three very quick questions. If I'm paying a bill personally, right, I have to pay it within a 30-day cycle. If I don't pay it, I get a late charge, I get interest. Do we just pay it when you feel it's convenient? Like, where do we
Definitely not.
stop? What's our payment terms to, recoup the money that we're putting out?
You have to understand that in order for centers to consider paying a bill and triggering a 30-day provision, they have to actually get the bill, and it has to be a bill that they can understand. And so the bill that was initially sent to them was delayed by the county, and when it was ultimately sent, it was not clear as to what it was for, and so we've now clarified that. I don't have the exact date when it was clarified with them, but I anticipate that we're going to be hearing from them within a matter of days.
So you're saying we sent the bill late and they didn't understand what we were asking?
Correct.
Huh.
Any other questions for Mr. Whitehead?
I do believe that, you're not hearing everything here. The idea that, centers will have to take care of the maintenance, I believe is correct. I believe what he said, they're not obligated to using Siemens for this, but, they could use somebody else. But it's on them. And, but the whole idea of this technical support, report that comes out once a year has a cost of about $8,000. That's a sticky wicket. Initially in the contract, it said that that report would be suspended, that neither the county nor centers would continue paying on it. And I objected to that strongly. And when the contract was actually accepted some months later, I was informed that that language was changed to make it an option of the county to decide whether or not to continue that report, but in no way was centers obligated to pay for that report. So in the discussion on the report, I don't think you even have to involve centers. It's strictly a decision here whether or not you want to continue on that report, which costs about $8,000 a year, and which also, by the way, all of your guarantee hinges upon. And I will just read this, it's only a couple sentences. The performance guarantee, which is, $4 million so far, is dependent upon and is subject to the express condition that the client enter into and maintain during the entire term of the performance guarantee period the performance assurance TSP, the report. If client fails to enter into, breaches, cancels, or otherwise causes the termination of the performance assurance TSP, this performance guarantee shall terminate immediately and be void and of no force or effect. The services to be provided under the performance TSP are defined in Exhibit A. So, I think that, I am not a lawyer, but I would think that you would not want the Siemens lawyers arguing against you in court that for $8,000 that your $4 million might be in jeopardy, and I wanted to make that point. But the other point I wanted to make was in regards to this larger sum of money, the $458,000 a year essentially. And I don't think it is nearly as clear as it was just explained to you about who is actually going to pay that bill. Let me read you from the contract. It says, notwithstanding the foregoing, the seller, that's us, and the buyer acknowledge that the seller, us, is and continues to remain contractually obligated for the payment to buyer, centers, of the amount of the lease payments less the Medicaid reimbursement therefore received by the buyer through December 31st, 2021. So what they're saying is that centers will front the money. Centers will pay Siemens initially, but they will send us the bill for the difference between what they put up and what they pull in from Medicaid. And as far as I know, we still have not received a capital payment from Medicaid since 2009. So why you might think those things might start magically happening, I don't know. But it says that we are not that the, Centers is only going to pay the difference, between the two, and if they get nothing back from Medicaid, we're gonna pay the entire $458,000. So it might, from a budget standpoint, be best for you to go ahead and at least put that in the budget, because it seems likely that you would, have to pay for it. If, on the other hand, Medicaid starts coming through with all this money, then you could clearly say that money will be channeled back through us and, you know, we'll be reimbursed, and then I wouldn't have that concern. But I think you should have that concern today about getting the reimbursement on the largest portion of it, capital lease, $384,000 a year.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Anyone else have any questions for Larry? I think we should go into executive session now, to discuss this, as a contractual item. Hopefully that we're not talking too long for those of you that need to wait. We'll try to make it as quick as possible. Chair, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss, Ms. Seaver, second.
State the purpose.
Ms. Bramer, and the purpose is to?
Discuss the Siemens litigation. Attorney-client privilege.
To discuss matters dealing with the contract attorney-client privilege.
And litigation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are going into executive session. I would ask, everyone
I don't know if we brought it to the floor. I think
All
we just let Mike Swan speak.
All righty, we're back in regular session. Are we all set? Okay, very good. Chair, I'll entertain a motion, to bring to the floor for consideration item 3B. Mr. Simpson, Mr. Dickinson on the second. Discussion regarding item 3B. Ms. Seaver.
I hate to keep going back over this, but I'm confused because Mike's asking for all the money to be able to pay it, but the purpose of the amendment narrative says that we're not paying for the performance. So, do we have to change the language in section A in order to approve this as presented to us?
Wait.
No.
It does say that.
No? Is the answer? Okay.
Because the total amount that I'm asking for is to pay for everything. At such time as this board decides, I know that's necessary.
Okay.
At such time as the board directs not to pay any of that, then we won't pay it.
Okay.
All right, is everyone clear on that?
Yes.
But I do need a source of funding attached.
All righty. For Mr. Simpson and Mr. Dickinson on the motion, would you amend the motion to authorize the treasurer to, the funding source to be the unobligated fund balance?
Yep.
It's a yes on the motion and a yes on the second. So everyone understand that this item 3B includes a provision that the funding to be secured for this would come from our unobligated fund balance. Claudia?
Are you talking about the whole amount, or just that 1,500 amount is coming from?
I would say the whole amount,
Just get the run through,
458.
okay.
I need the whole amount. Now, before you get panicked about that, understand that we will be receiving money. I just need to make sure that I can draw off of that fund to pay the bill if I don't happen to have, like right now, I don't have enough money in that account to pay it.
So over the year, it'll be up to?
We're just gonna have to balance it as the money comes in and as the bills come in. And at some point in time in the near future, hopefully I can come back to you and say, look, this is how much we received, and I've only taken X number of dollars out of the fund balance. I'm just trying to cover it all, because it's kinda hard to explain, because it's basically an accounting thing. I can't create an expense without a revenue behind it. And I got nothing right now as a revenue.
We're ready. Any other questions? If not, are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of item 3B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3B is carried. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We're on the reverse side, right? We're on item C.
That's correct.
Referral from the Health and Human Social Services Committee Item C, request to amend the 2016 county budget in the amount of $1,509 to reflect the receipt of Federal Trade Adjustment Act funds, to provide reimbursement for the training of 4 dislocated workers. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item C. Edna on the motion, second. Sokol, thank you on the second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of item C signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, item C is carried. Item D, request to set the salary of the Assistant Director of Patient Services position and to amend the table of organization and salary schedule accordingly. The Health and Human Social Services Committee approved the filling of the vacant position due to retirement, but referred the matter to the Finance, Personnel, and Higher Education Committee to set the salary for the position pursuant to a salary study. Chair will entertain a motion to bring item D to the floor for discussion. Edna, Mr. Dickinson on the second. What do we have here?
This is a follow-up to, the Health Services Committee where our Assistant Director of Patient Services announced her retirement after 30-plus years. So even though we're sad to see her go, she certainly deserves it. And so, the people that are on our committee, this is, they already know about this. We did a salary survey, which, Jackie has helped with and did a lot for. And it wasn't quite as easy because there's so many different titles, and we were able to come up with some numbers, actually, some from the Home Care Association as recent as this morning. But we already had all our ducks in order, and it was nice to know that we weren't far off. Actually, we're lower than what they're looking for. The current assistant director's salary is $78,292. What we're proposing is a salary of $76,000. I have concerns about that, and the concerns that I have is that it's a competitive, non-bargaining position that obviously is going to need to have a civil service test, and the candidate must score in the top 3. Depending on what county that candidate might be, if we are able to recruit one, it'll be a broader catchment for people that will be eligible to take the test. We might not get that many nurses that are in senior management positions that want to leave current jobs for probationary appointments because there is some risk associated with that. We have no internal candidates that meet the educational and job experience qualifications that are interested in the position. And many counties no longer operate a CHA. So for people to say, let's go to Warren County, they have a CHA, they might not look at that as an opportunity, even though we know at this moment in time we're very solid and safe. So I guess that's my proposal to you. I don't know what we're going to get, but I would like to post it because it's an important position and we do need to get going with it.
So you've reconciled the $76,000 even?
Yes.
$76,000. We'll need, at this time, we should have the motion on this amended to reflect the salary of $76,000. That motion was made by Mr. Sokol. Who else made that motion?
No.
Edna made the motion. Mr. Sokol on the second. You amend it to reflect that salary?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So, does everyone understand the salary being set for this position to seek someone for the Assistant Director of Patient Services will be set at $76,000.
Is that money in their budget?
They actually have budgeted, the original retiring position was higher at $78,292, correct?
Yes.
So it's actually a tad lower than what was originally budgeted. All righty, we ready for the question then? All those in favor of item D as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 6, referral from the Support Services Committee, Information Technology, request for a new contract with Time Warner Cable Enterprises, LLC, to provide the employment and training administration with a connection to the county center when they move to their new location. Note this request was not entertained by the Support Services Committee as the issue arose after the committee met. Supervisor Vanslo was consulted and was not did not object to the request being presented to Finance. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 6. Mr. Simpson, Mr. Dickinson, had a chance to look at 6. I assume it somewhat details the Yes, it does, yes, it does detail it. All righty, then are we ready for the question on item 6? All those in favor of item 6 signify by saying aye. Opposed? Item 6 is carried. Item 7, referral from the Tourism Occupancy Tax Coordination and Wood Park Committees, Park Operations and Maintenance. 7A, request to appropriate $422.59 from Budget Code A691.07, Deferred Revenue Gaslight Village Parking Fees, to Budget Code A1625.470. These were expenses incurred in relation to maintenance Charles R. Ward Festival Commons. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 7A. Mrs. Dickinson, Ms. Bramer on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Under Tourism, item 7B, request to amend the 2016 county budget in the amount of $22,190 to reflect the receipt of the Empire State Development Grant funds. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 7B. Mrs. Dickinson, Mr. Simpson on the second. Any discussion? There being none, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of item 7B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7B is carried. 7C, request to continue Joan Connolly's temporary appointment as tourism coordinator for an additional 6 months, April 2016 to October 19. Should that read, I think that should be 16, correct?
Yeah.
Pending a decision to fill the tourism director position. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 7C with the correction as noted. Mr. Merlino, Mr. Sokol on the second. Any discussion? We're ready for the question. All those in favor of item 7C signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7C is carried. 7D, request to appropriate funds in the amount of $27,000 from the Occupancy Tax Reserve A81 Budget Code A6417-470 Tourism Occupancy Tax Contract to fund the new contract for consulting services with BB&G Advertising, Inc. Chair will entertain a motion to bring this matter to the floor for discussion. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Merlino on the second. Any discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of item 7D signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. One, nay.
We have one negative in opposition. The motion is carried. Item 8, request items to be discussed by the county administrator. Request to amend resolution number 632 of 2015, awarding bid and authorizing agreement with McCarthy and Conlon LLP for auditing, accounting, and reimbursement services for Westmont Health Facility WC 72-15 to list to correct the source of funding, which should be budget code A4530-470 Public Nursing Home Contract. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 8A. Mr. Sokol, Ms. Bramer on the second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 8A is carried. 8B.
Wait a minute, we gonna have discussion? Back
yes.
up there, Jackson.
No,
Come
no,
on.
no. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up. I
Yeah.
apologize.
That's all right.
Sure, we can have discussion.
Yeah, I just had a couple questions with 8A. First of all, I assume that they won an RFP on that, McCarthy and Conlon, for the auditing, accounting, and reimbursement. That was originally an RFP, or was that just one of our, let's give it to somebody deals?
Says awarding bid.
Right, and now I'm just asking, was there an RFP put out?
This is to correct the source of funding.
This,
So there was an RFP, okay, and what was the amount?
I have no idea.
Okay, so there was an RFP put out, and they were the lowest bidder.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is to correct the budget code.
that's all it is, because we ended the enterprise fund.
Because we
and
ended
it's
the
being paid out of the A
We
fund.
terminated the enterprise funds, and so we have to create an account to pay them out of. That's what's happening here.
This resolution was already adopted by the board. We're
Right.
just changing the funding code.
Okay, all right.
I apologize for that.
No,
I think we did vote on this. We did, most carried. 8B, proposed changes to county job-related course benefit. I think if you look at 8B in the back of your packet, you will see some language per discussion that took place at the previous committee meeting. relative to, this matter. It basically recites, I believe, what the language that exists within our union contract. I think it exactly reflects language that exists in our union contract in terms of employment. We have a motion to approve this, change, this addition and this change, by Mr. Simpson. We have a second by Mr. Dickinson. Any further discussion? Are we ready for the...
discussion before.
Ms. Bramer?
Does anybody remember the discussion before? Was it, we talked about like 6 months or 3 years? Everyone's happy with 18 months?
Consistent with the rest of the...
That's what, okay.
All righty. Are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Proposed stipends for deputy, department head service when department head position is vacant. If you look in the back of your packets, item 8C, would add, the following provision, a deputy department head who acts on the part of the department head during a time when the position is vacant, or when the department head is absent or unable to act, shall receive the same salary budgeted and set forth in the salary and wage schedule of the county for the department head, provided that the deputy serves during, 1, a time of vacancy, or 2, a time period commencing the 31st day of a department head's absence or inability to act, and continuing until the department head returns to work. Chair will entertain a motion to bring this to the floor for general discussion. Mr. Dickinson, Ms. Bramer, on the second, discussion. Doug?
So, just to clarify, obviously, it's 31st day, department head's out, the stipend now is available to the assistant in that department, until which time the department head comes back. Is that additional stipend, is that prorated, or is that, in other words, how do we determine the amount, that assistant will get?
For each day, the assistant works in the position, starting the 31st day. So the
They
first
wo-
30 days, they don't get anything
Right.
more than their normal
31st
salary.
day, they get the head's
And they get,
department salary.
and you do it by day. When we fill out the 426 forms, when the, individual comes back, then the deputy would cease getting that benefit. Right to the day, right, Jackie?
Good, thank you.
All righty. Ms. Seaver?
And that amount would be the salary that is set for the person who is
That's correct.
not at work.
That's correct. All righty. Any other questions? Mrs. Simpson?
This is just, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but the last sentence, the time period commencing the 31st day of the department head's absence or inability to act. I think when we say or, it might, is it gonna be hard to, I mean, I know the intent is the 31 days, but what if somebody says to me, well, it says 31st day of department head's absence or the inability to act? Well, I'm unable to act.
I guess the question would be,
I
defer
mean-
to the attorney on this one, but
Right.
the intent was obviously, at least when I wrote it, was to refer to absence or inability. That phrase, absence or inability, is tied, either one of those, to the 31st day.
That's the way I would
Okay,
construe it
so
as
you
well.
would read, okay.
Yep.
I was just,
I
for
think
correcting
that,
me.
sorry.
Patty?
I think that last bit is a little awkward too. Maybe something about the head has to be absent for 30 days, and then, I mean, understand that's what we all will remember, but
Mr. Chairman,
Uh,
I could prepare
Counselor?
a council opinion letter if you like for the file, and we could put that in. County attorney opinion.
is that sufficient? Ms. Bramer?
I didn't hear him.
What, a little louder?
I could do a county attorney opinion and put it in the county attorney opinion file, and we'll have that for the, intent of the committee and the board when it's passed.
Okay, and I had one other question that you didn't answer.
Oh, you're gonna let me go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr.
Would that
Beatty?
be okay,
That's me,
Mr.
I'm all
Chairman?
about giving.
Supervisor Beatty?
Oh, no, I think he was letting me go first.
I'm
Oh,
letting-
Ms. Seaver.
Yes,
Oh.
that's why I
See,
got
that's
excited.
just me.
My question's for Jackie, actually. How did you come up, and I'm assuming you came up with the 31st day, is that what's consistent in other counties? Or, I know initially we threw out 3 months, we've thrown out all different numbers. I'm just wondering how we ended up with the month.
I didn't come up with it.
Oh,
I
I'm
did.
sorry. How did you come up with the month?
oh, thank you.
First of all, I was just trying to pick a reasonable period of time, and I did read something someplace when I was looking through the county law on deputies. I'm trying to think if it was a county law or something to do with civil service, but 30 days struck out at me as the right number. I can go back and look at my notes, but I first came up with the 30 days as practical, just, and then when I read through some, I think it was county laws on deputies, it just seemed to make sense. So I said, that's a good date to use, and it does seem practical, just, aside from what I read. I'm not saying you're locked into that legally. If you wanna change it, we can change it to whatever you'd like, but it just seemed to make sense to me.
The one other question I had, Mr. Chairman, was,
Beatty?
it says the 31st day. I'm an assistant, department head. And Peter's the department head. He's missed 3 weeks in a row. He comes back, okay? And then he's out 10 days after he's come back a week. Does it, start over again, the 31st, is it 31 consecutive days, question one? And because as assistant department head will ask that. I've had a lot of personnel, they'll nail you down on that. And then the second question is, so the first question is it 31 days consecutive that they're out? And if it's not consecutive, is it 31 days total? So if the department head misses 31 days in the year, and now it becomes more, the assistant's gonna say, hey, I can get my money now, because that person's missed 40 days this year.
That's a good question. I think the intent behind drafting this in the discussion last committee meeting had to address, serious vacancies and, not intermittent vacancies, and I think the thinking was consecutive.
You could easily, to address that though, you could easily put after two, right after that two, a consecutive time period commencing, right?
That's what I was thinking, put that term in there, and then that tightens up.
Who made the motion bring this before?
Mr. Dickinson,
Ms. Dickinson and Mr. Bramer, would you be willing to amend this, to indicate, a consecutive time period? Is that the word that we wanna use?
Again, we seem to be, micromanaging here.
We may, but it's,
So
if we
you're
can do
out-
it quickly,
So you're out 29 days and you come back for 2 days and you have a relapse and you go back out? So now the assistant's been carrying the load for 29 days and then gets a 2-day relapse and then they're back in the... I just think we're putting way too much into this. I think those are things you need your management people to handle. That's what you hired them for.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor,
Seaver.
except conceivably, our deputies are getting paid more to be in that role, right? They're getting paid more to fill in on a short-term absence, and that's part of the justification of their salary. I think consecutive is a fair requirement.
When you make the motion.
I'm happy to. Would you like to relinquish the motion to me?
No.
Is that how that works?
No, we have a motion on the floor that would need to be amended, by, who again? Mr. Dickinson and Ms. Bramer.
Or you have to pull your motion.
So I would ask,
I agree to the change.
thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Bramer, you
Yeah.
good with it? Okay, we're
I hate
good.
to throw a monkey I'm sorry, but as I'm rereading that, I don't know if that works.
Alrighty.
Can we do this? Can we just, we can fix this, but rather than just settle in on it right this minute, we can either do one of two things. I can work on it with Brian and get it done and have it for your next committee meeting, or we can just get it done and put it before the board. But when I read it again, if you read it, it says, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because it says the county, for the department head provided that the deputy serves during a consecutive time period. So you're referring to the time period they're serving, not the time period before. So I think what we need to do is somewhere in there at the right place, put something to that effect, and it may be a couple of words, but like I say, it's up to you. We can either put the words in and put it before the board, or we can put the words in and bring it back to
We
committee.
need some rescue here, Mr.
Take some
Gerard.
time.
I just wanted to tell the chairman that I have a 3 o'clock meeting.
I know, so do I. I'm moving along here. Why don't we do this? Why don't we, leave the motion as is, let's move it along to the board, and let's let staff, make, suggested changes to the full board at the board meeting. I think they're relatively minor. Let's not try to wordsmith it here today. Is everyone satisfactory with that? All right. All those in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carried. All righty, let's move on.
It's quicker than one and all.
We're on item D, 8D, I believe, county administrator position, review of timeline for fulfilling the vacancy. newspaper ads, publications ad, website posting, job application acceptance, and et cetera. Any comments regarding the timeline? Any comments regarding the advertisements or where we're placing the advertisements?
Oh, do we know where we're putting them?
They're all in here.
I believe they're recited in here on the,
8D.
8D,
on,
8D?
8D.
on 8,
They're all 8D.
they're all
Very
8D.
last
Oh,
page.
I'm sorry. This is
They're all
here.
8D.
Keep going.
But the,
Last page.
Keep going.
the specific postings are on the, I believe it's the final page.
You just had it.
Yeah, it's, item 8D. The PostStar, Times Union, National Association of Counties, Adirondack Regional Chamber of Commerce, New York State Association of Counties, Monster.com, Craigslist, and Indeed.com.
Thank you. Who's gonna spearhead all those ads and so forth? Number one, and number two is, did we check with, other counties like Lewis County, that did a nationwide search? They had excellent results in getting qualified applicants. And I'm just wondering if we just gave them a phone call and asked them if there was any other places other than what we had, that they had excellent results in getting applicants.
We can do that. Which county was that again?
Pardon me?
Which county?
It was Lewis County.
Lewis.
Yep.
We can contact Lewis to see where they place their ads.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Consider that done. Anything else? Ms. Seaver?
I'm I'm not gonna draw it out here, I know Mr. Gerard reminded us of our meeting. I'm not.
Don't like to be late.
I hear ya. I'm gonna vote no, but my question is, I know it's gonna pass, so when we did the budget going into this year, we looked at the county administrator's budget. There was very little money in there for advertising and things like that. Has that already been addressed, the money that will be needed to do a search like this?
No, you would have to, allow it just to come out of probably our salary lines for now and try to make it work within our budget.
Yeah, these are relatively nominal.
Nationwide.
If worse comes to worse, we can go to our contingency for these dollars.
We don't have to approve like a source of funding to do this?
No.
Well, I think we
I mean, we will, I think that if we do this going forward, at a certain point, we will have to come back, and, some of this may be retroactive, but
I think we will need some money, though, if you can, in our budget coming up, as a result of this board meeting, correct, Joanne?
Yes, we will have to do purchase orders ahead of time before placing the ads, so we are gonna need money in our budget before the ads are placed.
And what are you recommending be moved to your budget? And which code?
The ads so far are $1,000, we should be able to find that in our budget. If you go and do a nationwide search, that costs more, I have no idea what that costs, so anything above 1,000 or.
I think I'd put in 1,500 anyway, because if we do the 760, instead of the 4-day, you got 760, 410, another 110, so maybe we should just do 1,500,
1,500, it would come from, what, contingency, or your salary code? What would you recommend?
I think we could just move it out of the salary code and put it into
Okay.
our, advertising budget.
Salary code to advertising?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Dickinson?
I thought when we discussed this, we discussed advertising it internationally as well as locally. Is that covered under Craigslist and Indeed or not?
Indeed is a national, website that, you can find jobs all over the country on, that's why we picked that.
Okay.
But we will call Lewis County as well to find out if they had, any other sources that we did not think of.
Okay, thank you.
We want to reach as far as we can on this.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Claudia?
I would like to add Albany Law School, and I can help put a connection through there. And
Albany Law School.
they have a career services, listserv.
And Mr. Chairman, who wrote the actual ad? Who do I talk to? I'd like to see the ad. Is that you, Paul, or is that, who wrote the ad?
I did. Well, it's a standard format that our office uses. I developed it at one point, but what you see is, on the second, the second D page on the back, it says newspaper ad and other publications. What we typically do is take out some sort of a square box ad where we put that in, and we've designed that to, be somewhat catchy in the newspaper, but also not go overboard on cost. As you'll see, the cost for that ad, we've approximated it at $550 for a 4-day, and then $760 for paper and online. So, and the Post Star is 410. So the more you put in the ad, the more expensive it gets.
But, could I make a comment?
Sure.
This is a very valuable position according to a lot of people in this room, and I don't disagree sometimes. And I think if we're looking at saving $500 here or $50 here, just you'll be gone, at the end of March, Paul, and your salary is what, $12,000 a month or something along those lines, just under $12,000 a month. I think we have plenty of dollars to do this right. And we have one of the nicest counties in all of New York State, the nicest area to live in, quality of life, and so forth. And for us not to say any of those things in an ad like this, does us disservice. If I'm reading this, I'm in Wyoming, and I see this, well, this is another lousy county up in New York State. Lewis County doesn't have a lot to sell. Nothing against those people, but they don't have a lot to sell up there. Other than Rachel. Other than Rachel, but they don't have a lot to sell, and they got 25 ads. My point is, let's do an ad that we actually sell our county. Makes sense. We'll do have a heck of a lot more people, and I think we can do better on the financial end of it, because if we sell the area, you don't have to always pay the top dollar for the individual. That's how I see it. So I'd like to have some input on that ad, because
I would say, would you be willing to meet with
I'd love to.
Joanne and staff to go over this?
Just make sure it says
You're
Lake George in there.
always
say
welcome.
Say
Matt?
Lake George, you got it covered.
Yes, I have a question.
Dennis, you're not wrong.
I was wondering if it would be possible to, not include a closing date for the receipt of the applicant. Yeah, this position is incredibly pivotal to the county, and, 3 weeks for this position to be advertised, and I just feel like, we should keep it open. That doesn't necessarily mean, delay any of the timeline otherwise, but, I think it's perfectly reasonable to keep applications coming in or be able to receive them until we find the right one. I don't wanna just, 3 weeks, that's it, take it or leave it.
Well, I think people are going to need to know, that we are looking for a response. But I have seen, advertisements like this where they're open until filled.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm more.
Well, I have seen that in the past. I do.
Yeah, but don't we need some deadlines?
Well, I think we do.
Move
I think
on,
we
and,
do.
The conversation when we did this is that we need to do this as, Supervisor Beatty said, we have to get to it, we have to get it as wide and far as we can, explicitly as we can, make it as sexy as we can, and we need to get to it and get it done and get these applicants in here.
Oh, and there's, yeah, I didn't say to delay the overall.
Well, I think that was part of our concern. And once Paul's gone, we're gonna be up against the wall, so to speak.
Mr. Chairman,
Claudia.
I think perhaps we could put something in about, applications will be accepted as, something about first come, first served kind of language, to get people to not procrastinate, but to leave it open so that if they don't find out about it until the 31st and they still wanna submit something, they could. Also, I have 2 other questions. Would it be appropriate to add something about the salary is commensurate with level of experience, and then on that regard, is 5 years experience enough? I mean, Paul, maybe, I know you drafted this, it just seems like a very short amount of time.
The, experience is actually set forth in the local law.
Right.
Okay, never mind.
And, I think we did put in some place where it was commensurate with experience. We usually do. We may not have, we usually would put that in, and I don't know if we didn't, we'll add that.
We can add.
Thank you.
Oh, it's in the county web posting on the, item 8D. Right after the newspaper ad, if you look, it says county web posting at the top. Because what we do on the newspaper ad is refer them over to the county web posting. This is the...
Yeah, I see.
What I'd ask you to do is, what Amanda will do is, we will make the changes that we've discussed today. We'll get them out to you. Feel free to respond back to Amanda or whatever staff person provides them with any of your thoughts or whatever, Joanne or whomever. I think that we're open to any reasonable suggestions. We want to do the best job possible. So whatever you receive on this, just feel free to comment on it. And I would like to move along, though, to item E. This There's a resolution 80 of 2016, authorized occupancy tax fund for 2016, enhanced occupancy tax spending plan, but inadvertently, the plan and the authorization for contracts was not adopted. The plan and authorization for extension and/or amendment agreements is attached for your approval. This would be item 8E. 8E was inadvertently left out, off of the agenda at the last meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Seaver.
would it be possible to go back to item 8D and vote on it?
8D. I'm not sure what we have to exactly vote on
We don't need
there.
to vote on it, so I don't need to be opposed to it? There's nothing coming to...
You don't, you can send us an email with your opposition or your
I thought we had a vote
recommendations.
on
I'd be happy to review it.
No, I think I've made my point now.
So on 8E, getting back, we have a motion to move 8E. Edna, did you save us with a second on that?
Sure.
Oh, thank you, Edna. Discussion? Claudia?
Is this the right thing for AE, this thing with the, okay,
It is.
alright,
It is. This should have been accompanied the resolution we passed at the previous meeting,
okay.
previous board meeting. Alrighty. Are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of item 8E signify by saying aye. Can we forego 9, Paul? No, we have the, you know what I would ask that we do at this stage is that we adjourn until after the board meeting. We reconvene after the board meeting. We'll have a motion to adjourn until after the board meeting. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Gerard, thank you. All in favor? We are adjourned, everyone. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Whose idea was this, these whole day meetings? This is absolutely horrible.
We're going to reconvene the Finance Committee meeting. There's an item F on the agenda that I'd like to include. It deals with, under the items to be discussed by the county administrator dealing with workplace violence. Paul?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to take this opportunity with everybody here, everybody almost here.
My stuff comes with me.
In support services, for those supervisors who were in support services, we brought up the workplace violence prevention plan. At that time, I gave out, in fact, you can kind of see what I gave out. It's right underneath the cover sheet here. I gave out the workplace violence plan, and in that plan, in red, were a variety of changes that were proposed to the plan, which was, timely given to supervisors before the meeting. It was presented, and then, if you recall, even there was, one of the latter pages, there was some black strikeouts, which we said, yeah, that's coming out as well. And then, during the course of that meeting, we mentioned that Westmount had to come out, and we also mentioned that there had to be a slight change in the municipal center because we now have locked doors as opposed to locked doors. So I'm sure those committee members who were there recall that we specifically talked about those changes. So what happened is, when we went back to revise the document in accordance with those changes, we found that for some reason 2 documents were floating around the county, slightly different from each other. So what I did is, in the one document that I had was not the same document that had been approved by the board and put in the code book. So what I did is I had my secretary then do 3 things, and I outlined them in the memo for you so you can take this home. But I wanted to explain it to you because it may seem confusing, but it's not as much as you might think it is. So what I did is, in this first workplace document, everything you see in red, well, actually, everything you see in black plus the red was what was before the committee. Everything you see in blue were the things that we talked about in the committee. For instance, if you just turn a couple of pages, you'll see Westmount facility being struck out. That was not in the document I gave to the committee, but we talked about it, that I was going to take that out. Later, you'll see some stuff in blue that we talked about at the committee that I was going to change in terms of the municipal center, the fact that we have the 2 public entrances locked now. There is one other thing you see on this document that you never saw before, and that's some things that are highlighted. The things that are highlighted are the differences that I found between the two documents that were floating around. The yellow highlighted differences, you certainly want to look them over yourself, but I do not believe that they change the essence of this agreement. They are just some fine tunings, if you will, of the agreement. And so I don't think that should be an issue. And actually, as I'm looking at it, it's funny how these things work, because even some of the highlights that you'll see under Municipal Center and following, those are things that we talked about. So my secretary misunderstood that a little bit, but I just wanted to go over that with you. And what I did is I gave you, memo to go with it on top, because I think it's important that the county move ahead with this document at the board meeting. So I wanted just everybody to see what will be presented to the board meeting, and that'll be the first document that's on top.
All right, thank you. So there'll be a resolution in front of us at the next board meeting.
Pursuant to the Support Services
I
Committee.
see. Okay, very good. Item 9, request items to be discussed by the proposed amendment to Warren County travel policy, item 9. You recall we discussed this at the last meeting, and then there was a resolution in front of the board which we asked to be tabled, and the reason for that was that our illustrious county attorney found a local law, 1954, that this didn't come up on the electronic survey. This is something that you dug out manually?
It was in the, Mr. Chairman, it was in the policy book, it was just under a different section.
Under a different section, which basically already did, I think, what we were looking to do relative to the travel policy. And I wanted the committee to see this and be able to read it. It would seem to me, though, that we should at least, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what the resolution is, merely a cross-reference in the travel policy to the general municipal law that allows the delegation to the chairman, and then to the local law that was enacted in 1954 that delegates the authority of the entire board to the chairman to allow attendance at conferences, trainings, and meetings, and makes expenses and fees and tuition of those things a proper county charge.
So this will be a, I guess you could say a revised, but actually it's a new resolution.
That's correct.
Which will be presented at the next board meeting. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Move this along to the board, Mrs. Dickinson?
I move it.
Ms. Seaver, is that a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is carried. Rachel, we have a request here from SUNY Adirondack. Do you want to explain it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Friday, I met with the college, and they are in kind of a tight time frame. They're looking for support from our county. It's my understanding the town of Queensbury has individually been asked to write a resolution, but that they're looking for a Warren County resolution in support of the Stand with SUNY initiative. You may have seen, it was already emailed out to us when NISAC did a broad statewide resolution supporting this. So what they're looking for now is specifically a Warren County resolution. They've provided us with some language, which I believe should have been passed on to the county attorney's office, and it couldn't wait until next month because they need this by April 1st. And so they are respectfully requesting our support, and I think that's it.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, and now we can entertain some discussion. Is there any discussion regarding this resolution? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the resolution and moving along to the full board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have some pending items. The first, committee to consider the appropriation of funds to the Board of Elections. Is that something that needs to be acted on, or is that on an as-need basis? I see it here on the agenda.
My recollection, and any member of the committee could, indicate differently, Mr. Chairman, but I believe that when this came up, right around budget time or just after budget time, it was asked to be put on the agenda. I believe that there's not an urgency to address it right now because there is funding in the budget, but I think the concern was, I think the election commissioners, were concerned about waiting until later in the year, because they said that they'd be very busy at that time, and if they did run out of money, they wouldn't wanna have to worry about it then. And I think if you recall, this is really a difference of opinion as to whether they need the money or they don't need the money, for their election cycle at this point.
And, this item 2, committee tabled request from the Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee, dealing with the construction of a storage building. That's also on the table. That is a tabled item, actually. Ms. Seaver,
Are we going back to the
we can
Board of
deal with
Elections?
either one.
I recall them, coming, and I know Frank Thomas had a lot of discussions with them the first month, into the new budget year, and, they were very concerned that because they had to do purchase orders and they weren't going to have enough money based on the way the budget, in their opinion, enough money, the way that the budget allocation was, and that we had assured them that if they needed the money, they would get the money, and we would get this back on the agenda to make the correction in the budget. Is that correct, Frank? So Joe, I mean, I would think we need some formal resolution to put that money back in there, and I know you're probably wondering what on earth we're even talking about, so maybe it would be great to have the Board of Elections come in and
I don't know that we
or
need,
no?
for them to come back. I think right now it's a question of, do we need to do this and when, Mr. Chairman?
Well, that's what I was saying, it's by ballots, and, I mean, if it was our own budgets at home, we would wait to actually need the money, and then, you know, certainly we're not gonna let them, we're not out of the county, school there, we're not gonna get 5,000 ballots and have 8,000 people. So I think you can wait, and if Mary Beth comes in June, and she's preparing her, ballot count for after the primary, you can give her the money. You can do it now, but all you're doing is loading up your budget by X number of dollars. I mean, I don't think we're gonna let them run short. I don't think the intention is to ever let them not have enough ballots.
Yeah, Frank?
Yeah, the issue with me was that we were raising money every year that we weren't spending. I had 8 years of, evidence that we weren't spending this $60,000, I believe. So, if you wanna appropriate it, make them feel comfortable, and take it out of fund balance, that way it'll fall back to fund balance.
Yeah, they're not, this is not like there's a lot of, discretion relative to these expenditures. You either have to hold an election or you don't. So it's, I mean, the dollars will need to be, if they're needed, they will need to be appropriated. The question is, if and when. I see it. I don't know. Ms. Seaver?
Could we perhaps then take this month, confer with the Board of Elections, find out what that hard number is? Because I know, Frank, you mentioned the 8 years, but I recall both of them being here, very passionate about this subject, would probably be the best word, and that they had said, you know, many of these costs have gone up over the 8 years, that they certainly planned, obviously on a presidential election, they didn't know if they'd end up in a primary. But I remember specifically the discussion about the purchase orders, and that they really felt that this was going to be a problem for their department, and, you know, I don't know how to resolve that without reading this.
I thought we already dealt with this, and we told them to wait and just use up their budget because Mr. Duzick had recommended that we do give them money now, so we don't wait till the end of the year and have this like slam, but we did not go with that
That was
recommendation.
my, understanding, Mr. Chairman.
The only thing I will remind everybody is there's less election districts now than there was a year ago. You're probably gonna have money to do this, but I mean, you know, I can go either way on it. I'm just saying, you know, let them get through June through the primaries, and then if they really need to write a purchase order, they don't think they have enough money, you can approve it in June.
Yeah, I think that's wise counsel there, I think, is get through that primary and then see where we are. Chairman, we'll reconvene on this issue then, after the primaries. Is that agreeable, without objection? All right, very good. And,
Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off while you were talking about the,
no, I'm willing to
Forest
deal
Street.
with either one. If there isn't a motion to take that off the table, it remains on the table. Mr. Dickinson?
I'd like to leave it tabled. I've had some conversations with, Jeff, Tennyson, He's offered to take me and whoever else is interested around to look at some of the available facilities we have, to house the vehicles and stuff he has. So I'd like to set that up and have an opportunity to do that and be on a better basis to discuss what they're doing.
Buddy?
I was just gonna say, this morning we got a packet of information about the current what the different options are. We have some more information, but we still have to do a little bit more homework.
Well, that was from Brian.
Right, but
Thank you.
Evelyn wanted us to take that packet and look it over for the next month, so then when we come back next month, if we have discussed, questions, we can discuss it, but also.
And
some
was
of you-
was my understanding that he had input from Jeff when he was putting that sheet together, that packet?
Well, I think that's part of the problem, and that's why, I've called Jeff, and he's offered to take me anytime I want. I wanna go around personally and look at these. And then when he comes in and we're talking about them, I'll know firsthand. I mean, he shows you a picture of some junk in the corner where they wanna have storage there. Doesn't give you the whole picture. That building is rented out, and the rentees have heat on in there that they're paying for. And there's space available in there for his equipment. Heated at the renter's expense, not ours. So there's more to it than just what he's telling you, the pictures he threw on the table there. There's a lot more to it.
There's 7,000 square feet there available. And Jeff is very willing to, do whatever
He
we
said
would
that he
need to
would
do
do some concrete
to make
things
that
in the
work,
way. He said he'd do those.
reposition
Yep.
driveways, whatever we need.
And that's what I
Own
want.
that.
I want to see the big picture.
I understand. Well, then, without objection, we'll leave it on the table
Great.
until,
Thank you.
we're completely settled.
Yeah, I'd like to,
So we're
I think I
satisfied.
spoke to you.
Yep.
And just for future reference, if somebody thinks otherwise, they can move it off the table, and if they have a second and they have a sufficient number of votes, then it's adopted. That's how it works. Alrighty? Chair, I'll entertain a motion, do we need a motion to approve the filling of the vacancies? We do not need, that's for informational purposes. Believe it or not, any other business to come before the committee? I hope not. Oh, Mr. Chairman.
I think you need to consider, the post of, deputy county administrator. And I'm not sure what Joanne's title is, but how it figures in if there is a gap. Or you can do what Doug suggested, and I'll take the pay after the 31st day, you can raise my pay up, my little bit of stipend as the chairman. But I really think we need to consider Joanne's post, and I don't know if we need, we should do it in March and let, I think the county attorney and, civil service work on a title for Joanne, because I guess it doesn't fit in right now.
Matt?
I think that would be appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to know, would we wait 31 days, or would it be?
Well, I could bring somebody's leg.
Yeah.
I'd fall over for that.
Yeah, Brian, I think we're gonna need some,
I will discuss it with,
something in,
Can you get that on your pending item?
something in front of us or relative to, the assistant or the deputy, administrator.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Do
All right.
you wanna make that as a motion that he puts together whatever we need and have it available?
No, I don't think we need a motion on that. I think
Okay.
it's just, straight away, we're going to need something to authorize Joanne to be, to act in this regard until such time as we should do something otherwise. Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I think we gotta be careful. There are two different issues here under your local law. When it was originally drafted, there was a provision for an assistant county administrator, which is different than the position of deputy county administrator, and that's the issue that the chairman is referring to. But that's a separate issue from filling somebody or having somebody act in my capacity while I'm gone. If you recall, under the local law, there is a provision for an acting county administrator to be appointed for up to 60 days. So you could, and we can study this to make sure, but it seems to me you could set a salary and appoint somebody, whoever you wanted, to be the acting county administrator for that period of time while you work on the deputy position, so that gives you some time to get that straightened out. And then you'd have the deputy position going forward in the event of brief absences and things of that nature, along with what deputies normally do. But if you want to resolve the issue of an acting county administrator, you can do that. The local law does provide for that right now.
Too late in the day?
What's the pleasure of the committee regarding
I
this?
mean, do you have to have, like, say, and I'm not, say we decide to have Kevin do it for a couple of months, is that what you just said?
I don't think you can have an elected official do it, but Brian could check that for you.
Okay, sorry.
The local, I'm sorry.
Claudia?
The local law does appoint the chairman to act.
That's, to act, that provision was set up to be like if I'm on vacation or out sick or something like that. That's why when we wrote the local law, we also wrote, though, for a acting county administrator position. So when you read the law, you'll see there's a couple of different functions, but the county, I can tell you that, and because I wrote that law, the intent was for the chairman to act when I just simply wasn't around. Like I say, if I'm on vacation, out sick, or whatever, that he could carry out those duties, because we wanted to make sure there was somebody here that could do that. Then we built the provision of acting county administrator for those time periods where either I'm not available at all or the position is vacant. So that was built into it as well. What we did not build into it at the time, and I don't really know why, but we didn't build in a deputy county administrator slot. We just left the organization the way it was with the assistant county administrator.
So I think for today, I think stay tuned. We'll be back to you. Let us hash this out a little bit more.
Good idea.
But Kevin, I think your volunteering is gratefully appreciated.
Just one other thing, and I just want all the committee to know, Friday night at the Civic Center, they had over 5,800, almost 5,900 paid attendance for the basketball game. And the coalition really thanks the county, and, you know, they're working with tourism to get some posters up. But I think the coalition and what the county and how they support the Civic Center, it's nice to see that place rocking again on Friday night. So those who go to the Civic Center and those who support the Civic Center, thank you. But I think you need to continue, and the money, the infusion of state money, dollars going into the Civic Center, it's just gonna continue to look like it's up. So, appreciate that on behalf of the boys basketball.
Mr. Simpson?
I just wanna add to that, I went to, the log jam with my family and I saw several Horicon residents down there that were at the basketball game. So there is a residual, there is a payback, and, it's pretty good, so.
Well, thank you everyone for your patience today. We'll learn from this experience and
OT.
try to improve going forward. Chair, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Already, there's nothing else.
Chase Beatty, how's it going?